Ambassador, as I told you in the other room, that spontaneous speech that you gave at the commission, I tell you, I think that is probably the most circulated piece of video in the Iranian American community, in the diaspora community all over the world. So thank you so much for that. And I hope you will continue doing that. And of course, I really want to turn to Masi and say thank you for all that you do. You are just honestly such a superb representative of the women of Iran. You are fearless, you have a purpose, and you're demanding more out of life and those in power. And I really want to salute you. You're a force of nature, and the rest of us are just around here trying to support your way going forward. And of course, your amazing husband, you know, it's like they always say there's a person behind the person, and you've just been incredible. So I want to say thank you to you as well. Okay, so Iran has recently been much talked about at the UN and around the world. And certainly the uprising of the brave women and men in Iran has fueled these discussions. The hope of the protesters is that they have been able to shed light on the nature of the Islamic Republic as a harmful global power. It really pains me to say this about Iran, a country with such a rich history, with the economic power, with an education level, to essentially be a G15 nation. Iran could be such a force for good instead of exporting terrorism and turmoil. The list is so long, but allow me just a few minutes to share a few examples with you. The Islamic Republic sells drones to Russia to kill Ukrainians or freeze them to death. It has reportedly secretly provided Russia with 100 million bullets and 300,000 shells. Ukraine is filing a complaint against the Islamic Republic with the International Criminal Court on its complicity with Russia on war crimes. Recently, the Islamic Republic orchestrated a cyber attack on Albania's government infrastructure. The attack was so debilitating that Albania, a NATO member, considered invoking Article 5. Prime Minister Rama said it's an aggression against the sovereignty of one country by another state, absolutely the same as a conventional military aggression, only by other means. Along with Russia, the Islamic Republic fanned the fires of the Syrian civil war, leading to millions of refugees leaving their homes. The regime battled, of course they made peace today, Saudi Arabia through a proxy fight in Yemen, devastating that country. It denies the Holocaust, has bombed a Jewish community center in Argentina, killing hundreds, and has just recently been implicated in a synagogue shooting in Germany. And the regime takes hostages, mainly dual nationals, and leverages these innocent human beings as bargaining chips to replenish its coffers. The list goes on, but I think I've said enough. But more importantly, Iran is on its way to developing a nuclear weapon. Let's for a moment just ponder the fact that over 30+ countries have a civilian nuclear energy program, but we never hear about them. The Islamic Republic denies interest in developing a weapon and cites Islamic scripture. Yet Iran's relationship with the IAEA has been rocky and unfortunately riddled with falsehoods. Iran has lied about its secret nuclear weapons program, the Ahmad plan, it was developing in early 2000s. The IAEA found enriched uranium particles at non-disclosed locations in Iran, which were supposed to be devoid of any nuclear activity. Again, IAEA says that Iran's explanations were basically false. On February 19th, it was reported that IAEA inspectors caught Iran enriching uranium to 84% purity, which is very close to the 90% needed for a nuclear bomb. After IAEA's recent visit, the Islamic Republic promised to increase cooperation. However, Mr. Grossi could not or would not confirm that Iran had agreed to provide access to information or handing over previous footage and data at nuclear-related sites. The U.S. Undersecretary of Defense told a congressional hearing just a few weeks ago that Iran could make enough fissile for one nuclear bomb in about 12 days. The Islamic Republic, unfortunately, for long has been a student of North Korea. They understand full well that their ticket to longevity is a nuclear weapon. It's only at that time that they will become untouchable. If Iran acquires a nuclear weapon, the region, including Saudi Arabia and others, will be next. And this is the world that we will be facing. So what is our way forward with Iran? Diplomacy, obviously, is always the preferred way, and diplomacy should always win. Diplomacy, however, requires trust. Trust is reliability. Trust reinforces confidence. And diplomacy requires two willing and reliable negotiating partners. Unfortunately, throughout Iranian history of uprisings and revolutions, and in Iranian lore, the clergy or mullahs do not have a reputation for reliability. The English translation of the adjectives often used about them is crafty, wily, cagey. The current Islamic regime, unfortunately, lies like it breathes, eliminating any semblance of being trustworthy. The foreign minister, in a recent CNN interview, essentially said, "No one has been killed in Iran during the protests." The head of the Iran nuclear program recently said the production of the 84% enriched material was accidental. Many of you just heard about the schools, the biological attack on the schools, 90 schools in 21 provinces. The head of medical services denies the attacks and attributes the hospitalization of young girls to getting, quote unquote, hysterical. Going all the way back to the 1906 constitutional revolution in Iran, the first of its kind, by the way, in the Muslim world, Ayatollah Nouri first accepted demands for a democratic change and sided with the revolutionaries. However, Nouri turned against the revolution once he became a favorite of the new Shah. The turnaround was essentially a nail in the coffin of trust with the mullahs. Of course, this is not to say that there are no clergy or mullahs that have had the best interest of the Iranian people in mind. In this regime, however, those who could have been were either eliminated or sidetracked. So what is our way forward? Masih actually said something a few weeks ago that really sang to me. She pointed out that Iran has been increasingly aggressive and acts with impunity since no country, large or small, has the will, the courage, or the resolve to stand up against it. In the US, the Pentagon has announced that Iran remains the leading source of instability in the region, and they're moving to treat Iran as a global threat and developing contingency plans. US and Israel carried out the largest ever joint military exercise with 7,500 personnel. Israel, being the top target of the Islamic Republic, is preparing for the worst and strengthening cooperation with regional countries in the Persian Gulf under the auspices of CENTCOM. But you know, another war in the Middle East is not palatable to the US, to the Iranian people, to the EU, or most likely any other country around the world. The free world currently has its hands full with Russian aggression in Ukraine, and of course dealing with the ailing and inflationary economies that they're all experiencing. But there are other ways to counter the Islamic Republic. I'm not talking about words of solidarity anymore, because we're way past that point with the Iranian people, and merely denouncing bad actorship. The Iranian people really appreciate the sentiment, but they're looking for action that can improve their lives. Any action that we take must have unity, unity in purpose, unity in outcomes, and unity in action. It's one thing for authoritarian regimes to band together, but it's altogether another to have disharmony in democracies. For example, as long as there's discord between the US and the EU, guess who's the winner? The Islamic Republic. As long as there's discord between, in the United States on Iran policy between Republicans and Democrats, the Islamic Republic is the winner. In addition, up to now, all policy towards the Islamic Republic has been reactive rather than proactive. And who's come out the winner? The Islamic Republic. So in pursuit of peace, the EU and the US and other democratic countries must join forces to confront the Islamic Republic and develop joint policies. And the most effective way to counter them is to halt their flow of funds. I'm happy that many of the ambassadors of the countries that can help are actually present here today. The hope is that the EU and the US can join forces and bring a group of other democracies together. So first, the EU must designate the IRGC as a terrorist organization who has organized at least 33 terrorist schemes across Europe in the last 5 years alone. IRGC reportedly controls up to 80% of Iran's trade and industry. Designation of IRGC as a terrorist organization will provide a more effective means of disrupting the group's financing. In light of the war in Europe's doorsteps in the Ukraine, the designation will also limit the ability of IRGC to support Russia. Joseph Borrell, the EU's High Representative for Foreign Policy, says that the EU Council does not have the legal power for such designation, as it requires an opinion from an EU court. Mr. Borrell must be misinformed. The Legal Services of EU Commission has released an opinion that the decision could be from a third country. The case of Zarei versus Iran concluded that the shooting down of Flight 752 by IRGC constitutes quote-unquote terrorist activity under the provisions of the Canadian Criminal Code. So I would like to say to Mr. Borrell, when there is a will, sir, there is a way. In addition, oil sales, mainly to China, India, South Korea, Japan, and a handful of other countries, is the largest source of revenue to the Islamic Republic. These sales have to be curtailed and stopped. I don't pretend for a moment that taking this step is not economically and politically difficult for many of these democratic countries, but a limited pain today is worth a safer world tomorrow. And finally, a central bank asset freeze similar to Russia's, based on crimes against humanity, would be ideal, but it requires willpower. However, if such willpower does not exist, escrowed bank accounts are a possibility, and they were done during the Obama administration, and the assets could only be used for food and medicinal purposes and for in-country purchases. So finally, there's so many advantages to a secular democratic Iran. Iran has always been a regional bellwether. A secular Iran will be a beacon of democracy in the Middle East and around the world, while maintaining pride in its religious heritage. Iran can maintain peace in the Middle East and leverage its oil and gas reserves to counteract Russia's growing influence in using energy as a tool of aggression. I appreciate you all being here today. Political decisions on the Islamic Republic are not easy, but there is no doubt that they will really pay off in the future.